let's be real. AI coding assistants have totally flipped the script. It's this wild, exciting, and yeah, sometimes chaotic new world where you can spin up an entire application with just a few prompts. But as a lot of developers are finding out, moving that fast with AI can have some pretty serious consequences, as one developer learned the really hard way.
And look, this isn't just some made-up story. This is a real developer who went all in on AI-generated code. He built an entire SaaS platform, didn't write a single line himself, only to get hacked just 2 days after he launched. It's a perfect, if painful, example of the high stakes we're dealing with. When we let the AI just kind of vibe its way through a project, we can end up with massive security holes we never even knew were there.
And that really gets to the heart of the problem here. The incredible speed we get from these tools, it comes with this hidden cost. We lose structure, we lose predictability, and as we just saw, we can lose security. It's a way of working that people are starting to call vibe coding, and honestly, the cracks are beginning to show.
Okay, so let's get into it. This term, vibe coding, you're probably hearing it pop up more and more, but what does it actually mean? And why is it sending so many developers down this path to chaos? Let's break it down.
You know, the best way to think about it is like a stream of consciousness for coding. You have an idea, you throw a prompt at the AI, it spits out some code, you then refine it with another prompt, and another, and so on. It feels incredibly fast, it feels creative, and it's awesome for getting a quick prototype off the ground. But the second a project starts to get even a little bit complex, this whole intuitive approach can just completely fall apart.
And man, these issues really stack up. The results you get are all over the place. You might get a genius bit of code 1 minute and then some insecure garbage the next. And because there's no formal plan, the AI slowly forgets the bigger picture, the why behind it all. Before you know it, you're left with this tangled mess of undocumented code that's a total nightmare to maintain or even think about scaling.
So out of all this chaos, there's a new, much more structured idea starting to take hold: spec-driven development.
And this is a huge shift in thinking. Instead of just jumping in and prompting away, you start by creating a detailed specification. Think of it like a blueprint. It's a formal document that lays out the requirements, the user stories, the technical plan, everything. This spec then becomes the one and only source of truth that guides the AI, making sure every single piece of code it generates actually serves the project's main goal.
This comparison just lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you've got vibe coding. It's reactive, it's messy, it's the classic move fast and break things philosophy on steroids. On the other, spec-driven development is proactive, it's deliberate. The mantra here is plan first, then build right, from the very start.
Now, this isn't just some abstract idea floating around. Nope, the big players are jumping in, building tools specifically for this new way of working. And one of the biggest names throwing their hat in the ring is AWS, with a new tool called Kiro. They're calling it an agentic IDE, which is basically a fancy way of saying it's a smart coding environment that can think and act on its own.
And when you first open Kiro, you're going to think, hey, this is just VS Code. And you're not wrong. That's on purpose. But underneath that familiar look and feel, it's a totally different beast. It was built from the ground up around the spec-driven philosophy, making structured planning a core part of the process, not just some afterthought.
So how does it actually work? Well, Kiro's main spec mode boils it all down into 3 really clear steps. You start with just a simple idea. Kiro helps you flesh that out into proper user stories and requirements. Then it generates a full-blown technical design, complete with architecture diagrams. And finally, it breaks that entire plan down into a step-by-step checklist of coding tasks for the AI to tackle one by one.
But wait, it gets even cooler. There's something called agent steering, where you can basically give Kiro your project's coding rules, and it'll make sure the AI follows them. Agent hooks can automate all those boring tasks, like automatically updating your README file every time a function changes. And get this, MCP servers let the AI connect directly to things like your database or other external tools to get work done. All this stuff comes together to create a system that doesn't just write code, it actively helps manage the whole project.
Okay, so on paper, Kiro sounds incredible, right? Like the future is here. But what's it actually like to use it today? Well, the community feedback is, let's just say it's a very mixed bag. On one side, you have people who are absolutely loving it. The early adopters who are just blown away, saying it feels like they have a senior developer sitting next to them planning out and executing complex features without a hitch.
But then, you have the other side of the coin.
A lot of users are hitting a brick wall. They're saying that while the planning part is cool, the actual code generation gets stuck in loops, fails on what should be simple tasks, and the whole thing is just painfully slow.
And a huge sticking point for a lot of people, the pricing. Take a look at that free plan. You get 50 vibe requests, but 0 spec requests. 0. That means you literally can't even try out its main flagship feature without pulling out your credit card, which makes it super hard for developers to even see if it's worth it.
So when you scroll through the forums and reviews, you start seeing the same complaints over and over again. It's too slow, the servers are always busy, it gets stuck on complicated stuff, and that pricing model really rubs people the wrong way. The takeaway seems to be that the idea is amazing, but the tool itself is still very much a work in progress.
But we need to zoom out for a second here, because this whole thing is bigger than just one tool from AWS. This is about a massive shift in how we're all going to work with AI.
Kiro is really just a symptom of a much bigger trend. All across the industry, developers and companies are having the same realization. For AI to be a truly reliable partner for building real production-grade software, we need structure. We need a plan. The Wild West era of pure vibe coding might be coming to an end.
And we're already seeing other ways to tackle this same problem. Take GitHub, for instance. They've released something called Spec-Kit. It's not a fancy all-in-one IDE like Kiro. It's an open-source toolkit that you run from the command line. And the cool thing is, it's agent-agnostic, so you can use it with whatever AI you want. Copilot, Claude, you name it.
And it's not just the tech giants either. You've got these cool community-driven open-source projects like Agent OS popping up. They're building entire frameworks to give all of us a standard way to work with AI in this new, structured, spec-driven way. It's pretty clear the whole industry is moving in this direction just from different angles.
All of this really leads to a huge, kind of mind-bending question, doesn't it? As these tools get smarter and more capable, is the most important skill for a developer going to change? Are we moving towards a future where we spend less time writing individual lines of code and more time mastering the art of creating the perfect, unambiguous, crystal-clear spec? The revolution isn't just about how code gets written, but maybe about what it means to be a developer in the first place.
All right, welcome back. In our last explainer, we looked at the big picture of AI development. Today, we are rolling up our sleeves and really digging into the how-to. We're going to walk through 3 super powerful, practical workflows that'll help you build AI applications that are way more structured and, frankly, just more reliable. Let's get right into it. Yeah, this quote, it hits home for a lot of us, right? If you're a developer, you've absolutely felt this. On one hand, you've got this incredible creative freedom of just vibe coding, telling an AI what you want and just watching the magic happen. But then there's the other side. You need structured, production-quality code that's not going to fall over. It's that classic tug of war between raw power and reality. So how do you find that sweet spot? How do you get the best of both worlds? Well, it's all about a shift in how you think. Instead of just being a passive prompter, kind of crossing your fingers and hoping the AI gets it right, you become an active system architect. You're the one guiding the whole process with methodical, proven approaches. Let's see what that actually looks like in practice. So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with a big idea that brings order to all this chaos: spec-driven development. Then we'll get our hands dirty with step-by-step walkthroughs for Agent OS, Spec-Kit, and the S.H.I.P method. And we'll wrap it all up by looking at how these frameworks completely redefine your role as a developer. The key to taming the Wild West of AI coding is this concept called spec-driven development, or SDD. You can think of it as the foundation for everything else we're about to talk about. And honestly, this is a total game changer. So what does that actually mean? Well, instead of just jumping right into the code, you start with a super detailed blueprint, the specification. This spec becomes the single source of truth for your entire project. It's basically a contract you make with your AI, telling it exactly what to build. And the result? Way less guesswork, fewer nasty surprises, and much higher quality maintainable code. Okay, so that's the big idea. Now, let's see how this concept plays out in our very first workflow, Agent OS. I want you to imagine creating a personal, customizable system that you train to build software exactly the way you would. That's the real power of Agent OS. You get consistency and quality every single time. At its heart, Agent OS is a free, open-source system that lives right there on your own machine. So you're not just using some third-party tool, You're actually building a personalized development environment for your AI agents. You get to teach them your specific coding style, your favorite tech stacks, and all your team's best practices. Now, this is what I think is really clever about Agent OS. It's two-part structure. You've got your base installation, which is like your global playbook. It holds all your core standards. But then, when you start a new project, a project installation copies those standards right into the project's folder. This is awesome because it gives you global consistency, but with project-specific flexibility. Plus, you can check the whole thing into Git and share it with your team. So the day-to-day workflow really boils down to this super simple, repeatable three-step cycle. You start with /create_spec to define what you want. Then you use /create_tasks to break that down into concrete steps. And finally, you unleash your AI agent with /execute_tasks. It's this methodical loop that takes you from a fuzzy idea to fully implemented code every single time. All right, next up is Spec-Kit. Now, if Agent OS is all about building your own custom system from the ground up, Spec-Kit is more like a guided, command-line-driven process. It provides these really helpful guardrails to get you started with spec-driven development quickly and efficiently. Yeah, this approach is less about creating a whole personalized OS and more about using a streamlined set of command-line tools. It expertly walks you through generating the documents you need, the spec, the technical plan, and the task list that your AI agent needs to build effectively. And you can see just how logical this flow is, right? You start with specify to define the what and why of your feature in plain English. Then you use plan to map out the technical how, your tech stack, your architecture. And finally, tasks creates a detailed to-do list for your AI. It's a really straightforward path from an idea right into action. And here's why that separation is just so powerful. The specify command is all about the product vision, a sleek podcast website. Simple. Then plan gets technical. It locks in specific tools like Next.js and Neon. This is crucial because it stops the AI from just making up architectural decisions on the fly, and it ensures that you, the human, remain in complete control of the technical direction. Okay, now for our third and final workflow, the S.H.I.P method. And this one's a little different. It's not a command line tool or an OS. It's a strategic framework. The whole focus here is on making those big, high-level architectural decisions before you even think about writing a single spec file. I love this analogy. The core idea here is a really powerful mindset shift. You are the architect, and the AI is your construction crew. Your most important job isn't writing code, it's making the big, strategic decisions about the structure and technology before a single line of code gets generated. Your job is to hand the AI a perfect blueprint, not to lay the bricks yourself. So how does this actually work in practice? It's a four-step process. First, you strategize, just mapping out your app's main components. Then you handpick the right tools for the job. Next, and this step is absolutely crucial, you isolate the core idea and build a tiny little test just to see if it works. Only then, once it's validated, do you produce the final application from scratch with a solid plan. Each of these phases serves a really vital purpose. Strategize is about figuring out what you actually need. Handpick is about making smart, informed choices. And you really need to pay attention to that isolate step. This is all about reducing risk. This step alone can save you weeks of wasted work by proving your riskiest assumptions with minimal effort before you go all in on a full build. Okay, now this is a golden nugget right here, a fantastic practical tip. When you're in that handpick phase, researching tools, adding this simple phrase to your prompt is like a superpower. It forces the AI to explain really complex trade-offs in simple terms. It empowers you, the architect, to make the best possible decisions without having to be a world-class expert in every single technology. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We've walked through three powerful but also very different workflows. So the big question is, which one is right for your next project? This table breaks it down for us perfectly. Look, if you want a deeply personalized and repeatable system for you and your team, you're going to go with Agent OS. If you just need to get started quickly with a structured process, Spec-Kit is your best bet. And if you're focused on high-level strategy and de-risking a brand new idea, S.H.I.P is the way to go. And check out that key artifacts column. It tells you what each process actually produces, which is super helpful. Look, at the end of the day, the best method really depends entirely on your project's needs. Whether you need deep customization, a quick start with some helpful guardrails, or serious strategic validation, there is a workflow here for you. The key is just choosing the right tool for the job. And that brings us to what might be the single most important idea in this whole explainer. All three of these workflows point to a future where your primary value isn't just in writing lines of code. It's in making smart, high-level decisions. It's about being the architect who guides powerful AI to build robust, reliable, and truly great software. This is a fundamental shift in how we build things, and it is happening right now. All right, welcome back, everyone. Today, we are diving straight into a massive showdown happening in the world of AI development. We're talking integrated powerhouses versus the open source challengers. But, this is way more than just a tech rivalry. It's a really fundamental debate about how we should be building software with AI. So let's get right into it. So to really frame this whole discussion, let's kick things off with a core question for you. When you sit down to code with an AI assistant, what are you? Are you an architect, meticulously planning every single detail with a blueprint before anyone even thinks about laying a brick? Or are you more of a jazz musician, just improvising, feeling the rhythm of the code, and creating something totally new in the moment? Now, this isn't just some personality quiz. It's the central tension that is literally shaping the future of AI development. And that tension? It often leads to moments exactly like this. This comment from a Reddit user just perfectly captures a frustration I think we've all felt. You're in the zone, you're vibing with the AI, things are going great, and then boom, it just stops, it completely loses context, it starts hallucinating or gets stuck in some kind of loop. This exact unpredictability is the problem that this new wave of tools is trying to solve. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the three key players in this space. Then we'll dive deep into that spec versus vibe debate. After that, we'll explore a practical middle ground, and we'll wrap it all up by looking at why the future is almost certainly a hybrid of both. Okay, so let's meet our contenders. In one corner, you've got the integrated all-in-one experience. And in the other, you have the super flexible open source frameworks. Each one represents a totally distinct philosophy on how we should be collaborating with AI agents. First up, we've got Amazon Kiro, which is an agentic IDE from AWS. So think of it like this. It's a development environment where the AI is a true agent, taking on really complex tasks for you. Its biggest strength? That seamless spec-driven workflow you get right out of the box. Plus, it's a fork of VS Code, so it feels super familiar. The weakness, though, is that it's a closed-source product with a credit-based pricing model, and that can make costs pretty unpredictable. The opportunity for Kiro is absolutely massive. It could easily become the standard IDE for the entire AWS ecosystem. But the threat is also real. Agile open source projects could just replicate its core features, making it a much less compelling choice for developers who really value flexibility and transparency. Next, we've got Agent OS. Now, this is a free open source system, and it's designed to be totally tool agnostic. That means it'll work with whatever AI tool you already love, whether it's Claude Code or Cursor. Its strength is its extreme customization. You get to define your own standards and your own coding styles. The main weakness? Well, it takes more upfront setup and requires a lot of consistent discipline from the dev team to actually maintain those standards. The opportunity here is huge. It could become the universal framework for professional AI development. But the threat is that a lot of teams might just prefer the out-of-the-box convenience of a tool like Kiro, even if it means giving up some of that control. And our third player is GitHub's Spec-Kit. Backed by GitHub, of course, this is a free open source toolkit that's all about a CLI-driven workflow. That's a command line interface. Its strength is its flexibility and its broad support for all different kinds of AI agents. And it's all right there in the GitHub ecosystem you already know. The weakness is that a command line interface can have a steeper learning curve for some, and all that detailed back and forth with the AI can chew through a lot of tokens, which could drive up costs. Its opportunity is to become the go-to standard for spec-driven development on GitHub. But the threat is that its very structured process might just feel too slow for developers who are used to more agile, rapid prototyping. So let's just put them all side by side for a second. You've got Kiro, backed by AWS, which is an integrated IDE. You've got Agent OS, an open source, totally customizable framework. And you've got Spec-Kit from GitHub, which is an open source CLI toolkit. The choice here really just boils down to what you value most. Is it the all-in-one convenience of Kiro, the total control of Agent OS, or the structured command line flexibility of Spec-Kit? Okay, so we've looked at the tools. Now let's get into the philosophy that's actually driving them. This, right here, is the heart of the matter. The great debate between two fundamentally different ways of working with AI. Are you building with a blueprint, or are you just feeling the vibes? First, let's define vibe coding. This is the jazz musician's approach. It's that intuitive, prompt by prompt conversation you're having with an AI. You know the drill. It's fantastic for rapid prototyping and smashing quick bug fixes. But as so many of us have found out the hard way, it can lead to code that's inconsistent, unpredictable, and an absolute nightmare to maintain or scale. You're basically just hoping the AI gets it. And then on the complete other side of the spectrum, we have spec-driven development. This is the architect's method. You start not with a line of code, but with a specification, a detailed document outlining requirements, design, the whole shebang. This spec becomes the single source of truth, the blueprint that guides the AI agent. The whole point is to eliminate all the guesswork and make sure the final product is consistent, high quality, and is exactly what you planned from the start. So, you see, the crucial thing here is the trade-off. Vibe coding prioritizes speed, flexibility, and really rapid iteration. It's all about moving fast and exploring ideas. Spec-driven development, on the other hand, prioritizes consistency, quality, and long-term maintainability. It's about building something robust that's actually going to last. And look, the Vibe coding camp has a really strong case for certain tasks. As this user points out, for a targeted bug fix, you don't need some massive architectural document. You just need to jump in, have a quick chat with the AI, and get the job done. For small-scale work, it's practical and super efficient. But when it comes to building entire applications, the appeal of structure is incredibly powerful. This user found that the more they leaned into that spec-driven approach, the more promising it felt. It shifts the work from this constant, reactive prompting to proactive, strategic planning. So this brings us to the core of the whole debate. Are these two approaches fundamentally at odds with each other? I mean, is it a binary choice between the freewheeling musician and the rigid architect, a total clash of philosophies? Or maybe we should see it as an evolution. Is spec-driven development just what happens when vibe coding grows up? Is it the mature professional workflow that's designed to solve the chaos and inconsistency that vibe coding creates when you're trying to build something serious? But what if it's not one or the other? What if it's a synthesis? What if spec-driven development isn't about killing the vibe, but it's about giving that vibe some structure? What if it's a way to take that initial spark of creativity and build a solid, reliable plan around it? Okay, so how does this actually play out in the real world? Well, the truth is, the best developers I see aren't just picking one side or the other. They're finding the middle ground. They're creating these awesome hybrid approaches that give them the best of both worlds. A fantastic example of this is something called the S.H.I.P method. It stands for strategize, handpick, isolate, and production. You start with that architect mindset. You're planning, you're strategizing. Then you vibe for a bit. You isolate the core idea, and you build a minimal viable test just to see if it even works. It's only after you've proven the concept that you go back to being the architect and build the full, clean production application from a refined plan. It's a perfect blend of upfront planning and agile, iterative testing. So where does all this leave us? Well, after looking at the tools and the philosophies, one thing becomes incredibly clear. The future of AI-assisted development isn't about choosing one camp over the other. The future is hybrid. All right, let's just quickly recap the big takeaways. Tools like Amazon Kiro offer a powerful, integrated, but closed-source experience. Open-source alternatives like AgentOS and GitHub Spec-Kit give you incredible flexibility and control, but they do require more discipline. And that whole spec versus vibe debate, it's not an either-or question. The most effective approach is to use the right method for the right task. You vibe for quick prototypes and fixes, and you specify for complex production-ready systems. Which brings us right back to our original metaphor. Maybe the future isn't about choosing to be an architect or a jazz musician. Maybe the ultimate skill is going to be learning how to write the blueprint for a jam session, creating just enough structure to guarantee quality and consistency, while leaving just enough space for creativity, improvisation, and that magical AI vibe. What do you all think?